welcome to the podcast. I am Melissa Matheson, and I hope you guys are still hanging in there with all of the transition we've been going through lately with job changes, social distancing, schedule adjustments, and, well, just life. Many of the people I've talked to seem to have found a rhythm with family responsibilities and connecting with God outside of corporate church gatherings. And there's a few I've talked to who have been dealing with so many other personal difficulties that they haven't even realized COVID has changed life as we know it for many people. It's made me all the more aware that even when groups of people go through the same or similar difficulty, there will be unique reactions and responses from everyone depending on their perspective. I'm learning to pay attention more and acknowledge the feelings of others and not dismiss their thoughts simply because they're different than mine. Hey, speaking of differences, cultural differences that is, we are in for a treat today on the podcast. My world-traveling, nations-loving friend Julie is here all the way from Australia. Well, she's not just here for the podcast, she actually lives here in Northwest Alabama again. But she's been living in Australia for the last several years and came home with the best accent ever. It's a little Southern and a little Aussie all at the same time. Julie is married to Brett. She's a mom to Ethan and Aya. She's a daughter of God, a friend to many, a lover of Jesus, smart, funny, and has been living a life of transition for years now. I loved getting to catch up with her, and I know you're going to love this conversation. So grab your coffee and join us at the table. We're talking about nations, moving, and identity. Today on What's Next, God? Well, we always start out talking about coffee. But
we can talk about my lack of coffee.
We can talk about your lack of coffee and your enjoyment of water. What do you drink if you don't drink coffee? What do you drink?
I do drink tea, and probably my favorite coffee substitute drink is rooibos tea. So it's South African red bush tea, and it's got a really strong flavor.
Like a ginger flavor or a root beer flavor?
It's a totally different type of flavor.
And it's rooibos tea?
It's called rooibos tea.
Rooibos.
Yes.
Is it carbonated?
No, it's not carbonated. So it's like a tea that you steep. It's tea leaves.
Gotcha.
That you steep in a tea bag.
So you drink it hot? You
drink it hot with a bit of milk and a bit of honey if you want honey or sugar in it.
Is that the one that tastes like licorice?
It's not licorice-y.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's really because you know how people, if they don't drink coffee, a lot of times will drink black tea, or in Australia and England, it's very much a tea culture rather than a coffee culture.
Yeah.
And so we do afternoon tea, and a lot of people just drink black tea with milk or sugar or whatever. But black tea is still pretty caffeinated, and I just don't do caffeine at all. So it's not just that I don't do coffee, I just don't do caffeine.
Okay.
For personal, it just makes me really jittery, and it gives me a real severe high for 15 minutes, and then a major crash. I'm just really sensitive to it. And so,
have you always been that way? I don't know that I remember that.
Yeah, I probably most of the time you've known me, I haven't ever had caffeine. Okay. So I stopped drinking caffeine when I was in high school.
Okay.
And went all through college. And then when I started working at the office in 2008, I started back on the coffee because it was just there all the time. And so I started back on the coffee, but then it was the whole moderation thing. If I'm having 1 cup a day, I'm having 9 cups a day. And so it just got to that point where I was shaky during the day. And I was you know what, this is not a good thing for me. Let me just cut that.
Just had the conversation with my friend Holly about, she had 5 cups the other day because she's quarantined and she's at home. She's I don't know why. I just drank 5 cups of coffee because I could. And she said, and that was not a good idea.
Yep.
So moderation.
Moderation.
Yeah.
It's I'm probably better at it now than I used to be when I was younger, but I thought, you know what, let me just stay away from this door of addictive substances. That's hard for me to
it's a gateway drug.
So
it really is. It has addictive properties to it. And so I did not drink coffee until I married Dave.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't.
I don't think I knew that about you.
Nope. I just didn't do coffee. And when we got married, I didn't have a coffee maker or anything.
That is so funny.
But when we got married, he drank coffee, and that was kind of our way that we connected and had quality time was I would have a cup of coffee with him in the morning. He would bring me a cup and I would sit and we would have our little 30, 45 minutes before I had to go to work. And so I started drinking coffee when we got married. So it's kind of like a love language around our house, and not because it's like we have to have coffee. Well, maybe it is for him, but it's really just a conversation for us as a bit of a love language, because that's how I started drinking coffee.
That's really
with him.
sweet.
So, yeah. Tea, Maya Cole, my 15, almost 16-year-old
she's into tea.
She is a tea drinker.
That's awesome.
Loves tea. She has quite a healthy stash in the cabinet, which if I had known that, I could have offered you some.
That's okay.
But she is a tea drinker and loves tea. So I'll have to get her to try
Rooibos. It's good if you're because some teas have like a real mild flavor and kind of just tastes like hot flavored water. Whereas Rooibos tea has like a very strong flavor. So you're like drinking a drink. And they even in Australia, are we recording right now?
We are.
Okay, good. Didn't make that transition in my mind. But Rooibos tea in Australia, we do like Rooibos lattes. So you like take like Rooibos tea, you grind it real fine. You put a shot of like hot water through it like an espresso. So you get like a shot of Rooibos tea, put some frothy milk in it, and make like a latte out of it.
That's a great idea.
It's really good.
We could do that with some of our loose leaf tea for Maya.
Yeah, you could. It's really a great way to have like a full bodied drink if you're not having coffee.
So interesting. All the amazing things. And where did this come from? Australia?
That's where I first heard of it.
Yeah.
It was in Australia.
So you are a bit, I feel like if we were to name this episode, it would be Where in the World is Julie Rayner right now?
Yes.
Because
and only the Lord knows where that's going to be in 5 minutes or 5 days.
Yeah. Why is this?
I wish I could tell you. It is just, I was telling Brett this afternoon, like, I feel like this is just our lot in life. Like, some people, they live in one place, they have houses, they plant gardens. Some people just live in a whirlwind and the spirit blows them they know not where.
Or when.
or when.
How.
And that's just been like our whole marriage has been that way. Even like since our engagement, our lives have just been like, who knows where we're going to be next month or in 6 months. Anytime I've had even a 6-month plan, it's just gone up in flames. So, yeah, it's really interesting. I'm sure that all has to do with like part of God's purpose with our lives, being flexible, transition, the missions thing. All of those elements are really important if you're living a missional lifestyle, if you're living an international lifestyle. And part of that has to do with just the fact that we have an international marriage, and that comes with lots of complications, visa complications and other things that are just hard to anticipate, and sometimes issues that are completely out of your hands and you're just at the mercy of an immigration process or a citizenship interview or whatever. So, so it's been really like unexpected. It's been really interesting, the journey that we've had. But really beautiful as well, like beautiful in each season. And some seasons have been really tough with the not knowing or maybe not being as settled as we wanted to be. But we've also had seasons where we spent 8 months just traveling the world and going from country to country, doing different missions things. I think we were in 12 or 13 countries in 1 year, just as a young married couple.
Oh, wow.
Which was an amazing experience. And so there are pros and cons to it. And, the pros give us that lift to keep on going, and the cons build us and make us stronger.
So we are going to have you and Brett both come back. And I want everyone to hear your story about how you guys met, dated, because I hear there are conflicting ideas.
We have very different versions
about who liked who, and yes,
but mine's the right one.
We'll wait and give Brett a fair shot of being here.
Right, that's
you
important.
guys can talk it out on the podcast about how you met, dated, and married. You've been married a little over 5 years.
Yes,
you got married the same year I did.
That's right. Just a couple of months after you did.
You sure did. And he is from Australia. And you grew up in Alabama.
I did, in Decatur.
Your whole life.
my whole life. I lived in the same house my entire life. Which is funny because now we move,
everywhere,
all the time, everywhere. But he's the same. He grew up in the same house his whole life.
In Australia,
in Perth. And so, yeah, it's been a really interesting transition for us. Sometimes we think like, oh, are we doing something horrible to our kids by moving them around all over the place? Because we just have no grid for what it's like to
normal life.
Move around as a kid,
No, I think normal is, for you, whatever your life is. That is your normal. Like we can sometimes get caught up in comparison. Like you talked about, the house and the garden and all of that. Well, that's really just a comparison thing. We think we're supposed to be doing a certain thing a certain way because that's what everyone else our age is doing, or what everyone in that city is doing, or what everyone at our church is doing. Yes. And we can kind of get stuck sometimes living inauthentically because we're trying to be and fit in a box that we think we're supposed to fit in.
It's so true. And I think especially when marriage comes into the picture, I don't know if you found this, but I found this anyways, that with marriage came a whole lot of traditional expectations that were buried in me that I didn't know were there necessarily. And suddenly I found myself like feeling this need to fit into a certain wife box, or when kids came along, fit into a certain like mum box, which didn't quite fit. I know, I'm trying to put on my American accent, my mom box.
No, say mum box. Okay, because wait, I had to tell you, right, I've known Julie like 12 years, I guess. So she was from Alabama when I met her.
Very Alabama.
Very Alabama. And then has moved back and forth a few times, been gone for like 5 years, just came back to Alabama. But she came back like Australian.
With a weird hybrid accent, I say. Sometimes I say process, sometimes I say process. You should never know.
I'm looking at Julie, who still looks exactly the same as she did when I met her 12 years ago, right out of high school. And I'm looking at you, but like the voice it's different. And
it's weird, isn't it?
It's funny. Because we can Facebook message or text and stuff, and I don't hear your voice. But now, like when I talk to you, it's like, oh, she is so Australian.
It's a different thing. It's so funny. I was catching up with one of my friends from high school, and her grandmother. It was a bad situation. Her grandmother was just about to pass away. Had been really sick. She was really close to her grandmother, and so I met with her last time we came through town. Over coffee just to say hey and catch up. And I was trying to give my condolences about her grandmother. And in the middle of my condolences, she just burst out laughing. And she was like, your accent, I can't get over your accent. It's so different. And I was like, Jamie, I'm trying to give you my condolences. I'm trying to have a heartfelt moment. But she couldn't get over the way that I was saying my words.
Dundee.
She couldn't get over it. I was really frustrated. I was like, I'm really trying to like say something important here, but she just couldn't hold it together.
Because you've been living in Australia with your husband for 5 years.
For 5 years,
and then have just come back to the States and brought this. Now, what about your kids? Do you think they're going to end up with a Southern accent if you stay here?
They say that kids get their accent more from their peers than they do their parents. So if they end up going to school here and are around a bunch of Southern kids, they'll start. Yeah. Ethan's already started. He said the other day he was asking Brett something and he goes, Dad. And I was like, where is that coming from? What are you doing?
He's 3, right?
He's 3 and a half.
And a half. And then you also have a little girl.
Aya. She's going to be 2 next week.
2 next week. A little Aya. She's
precious.
And you have quite a story with her.
She's a miracle baby.
Yeah, she's a miracle baby. We can definitely, I feel like, Julie, you and I could probably do multiple episodes.
Have a lot of conversations.
All these different seasons of your life.
Yes.
And I would definitely be a whole conversation in itself. And then we're going to do the one about you and Brett and how you met. And we can talk about nations and we can talk about all of these things going on. So you grew up in Alabama. Mm-hmm. And you have a love for nations.
Yes.
Like God put Julie Tawari, that was your maiden name when I met you, in the earth, and he put nations inside of you.
Yeah.
When did that happen for you? Like, because when did you realize I am made for nations?
Well, I think I was kind of by design predestined to have a heart for nations because my dad's from India.
Okay.
So he didn't grow up in America. He grew up in India. He came over when he was 18 or 19 to do university here. And so I've always had a bit of like this cross-cultural mix going on in my house. He was Hindu when I was growing up. And so, he had the idols on the mantle that he worshiped. He burned incense every morning and said his prayers every morning. So there was a lot of duality going on in my home growing up. My mom was Christian. And so even though we were raised in church, he let my mom raise us in church. He wouldn't participate. He was doing his Hindu thing. So I kind of grew up understanding this need for people to encounter Jesus because I had it in my own home. We prayed for my dad a lot. And he ended up converting when I was in high school. And I would say, he's still on his journey with that, but definitely there was a marked change in him from that point on. And so probably around that time when I was in high school, I was really praying about, my destiny, my purpose. I was getting to senior year in high school and everybody's asking, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go to college? Like, what career are you going to choose? And I was so conflicted because I hadn't had this like overwhelming experience from God, like this writing on the wall thing, this call to ministry, call to missions that I was kind of expecting or that I thought you needed before you chose a path in life. And I was really stressed out about it. I was really like kind of like praying and seeking, constantly like, God, what do you want me to do? What should I choose to do? And in the end, it was like a very quiet, still small voice kind of a moment where the Lord just kind of reminded me of what has always been in me, like what I've always been drawn to, what I'd always been passionate about. I'd always been drawn to other cultures. Yes. I dreamed as a little girl of going to live in New York. I wanted to move to New York City because it's just such a melting pot of all these different cultures. And I thought that was fascinating. And I wanted to be right in the middle of it, right in the middle of where all these different cultures were coming together. And so it was just the Lord kind of whispering and reminding me, this is what has always been in you. It's what I've created you to do. So that was really interesting. And then that kind of developed over the next several years. And I went to uni and then came here to Hamilton. And
so you went to Union University?
No, I went to Lee University.
Lee University.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought it was Lee. Yeah. I thought you just said Union.
Sorry, I should have said college. I said uni. I should have said I went to college.
Oh, you were saying uni as in university.
Yeah.
I got you. The accent, Julie. The accent.
I know.
You went to Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, which a lot of we know a lot of people that go there. And that's where you went. What did you study?
I studied pastoral ministry and biblical studies.
Okay.
So I changed majors a couple of times. I started off with a psychology, theology major, which kind of gravitated towards just being a pastoral and biblical studies major in the end.
When you were talking about always knowing like what had already been inside of you this whole time, it makes me think of that verse in the Bible that says there's a voice behind you.
That is so funny that you say that.
Okay.
Because that is the word that the Lord gave me during that time when he was speaking to me about missions for the first time. It's that Isaiah verse. Yeah. You'll hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it.
So we sometimes want to go, God, what is the will for my life? What is the will for my life? What is your will for my life? What am I supposed to do with my life? And if we can look back at our story and things that have happened, even like things that we don't understand or things that didn't seem like they were good, like it is right there. Like there is a map right there for everything that we've gone through and we've been through and who we are and our family and all of these things that have happened to us is really a bit of a roadmap for us to be able to go forward.
It's true.
Isn't that interesting?
I'm just blown away that you mentioned that verse because I would say that's like the first like promise verse that the Lord really gave me. It was probably one of the first times I really felt the Lord speaking to me. Like this is God speaking to me for this moment and I know it, How does God speak to you? It varies from season to season, if I'm going to be honest. during that season, I wasn't hearing, like I said, the audible voice, the writing on the wall that I was expecting.
Yeah.
But then that scripture, as I was reading, jumped out at me. I knew it was the Lord. I knew it was him speaking. That happens often.
Yeah.
A lot of times, more since I've been older, like more since I've become an adult, it's more often that inner voice and the inner peace, the desires of my heart. I try to, anytime I have a desire for something, like laying that desire before the Lord and saying, okay, God, if this is you, I want you to strengthen this desire. If it's not you, I want you to take this desire away from me.
That's great.
And I find that the Lord really does that.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing how things that I thought I wanted suddenly then aren't that important to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wow, like that really was the Lord, like changing my heart on something. So, yeah, it's interesting. It varies from season to season.
And I think, too, as we get older, and it's sort of like your children, you kind of have to be a little more direct with them and help them along. And then as they grow, they start learning how to do things on their own. They start learning right and wrong. And I think we're that way with the Lord. Like, as we walk with God, we get into these places of maturity. And like, we know, and we have that knowing on the inside that this would please the Lord. This does not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, something that I tell people a lot is when they're really looking for direction, but they don't feel like they're hearing it, is sometimes like a GPS on your car, right? Like, if you are supposed to go straight for 100 miles, the GPS doesn't pop up every 5 miles and say, keep going straight, keep going straight. It's just silent because you're going the right direction.
Yes.
But when you need to take a turn, it starts speaking, 10 miles, take a turn, 5 miles, take a turn, 100 feet, take a turn. It's speaking often and
when
loudly,
so
you don't miss that turn. And so I just think, like, that's such a great picture, actually, of how the Lord speaks with us. Like, if we are going the right direction, oftentimes we're not hearing that constant reassurance.
Yeah.
But if we are about to miss a turn, the Lord's not going to let us miss it. He's going to keep speaking to us so that we get it.
Yeah, I told somebody just today, God is so big. Like, he made the universe. He's God. He sees everything. He's everywhere all at once. And he's not going to let us miss it. Like, he has a purpose and a plan for your life, for mine, for every person that's ever been created in the whole wide world. And I don't think a God that big and that smart is, I don't think we can, like, mess up like that bad that he can't come along and go
and fix it.
I mean, he's a God of restoration.
Yes.
And, he puts us, and sets things back in order for us to be able to continue to pursue him. And I just don't think that when we're seeking God that we're going to miss it.
No, that's exactly right. Like, he's going to make sure that he speaks to us, that he speaks to us in a way that we can understand. Like, I don't have to worry that I'm going to walk along and there was a leaf that meant I should go this way and I missed it somehow. You know what I mean? Like, the Lord's going to make it clear to me in a way that I can understand.
Yes.
And it's in his interest to do that. Like, it's in his interest for me to do his will. So
he's not trying to hide and like go, let's make this hard. It's, no, I understand exactly. So where is the first place that you traveled to outside of the United States?
The first place that I went was, if we don't count Canada, not that you shouldn't count Canada, but I don't really count Canada. The first place that I went in a missions context.
They have different currency.
They do, and different.
You have to have a passport.
You do have to have a passport, and you have to eat, cheesy fries, poutine.
Yeah.
They have different food,
They do?
So they're great. I mean, Canada's great.
Okay, but not Canada.
But,
all right.
But not Canada.
Someplace that doesn't speak English. Well, they speak French in Canada. Okay, but we're not going to count Canada.
We should count Canada.
Okay, so where's the second place you went?
So I went to Holland when I was about 10 years old with my family. Because my mom is Dutch. And so we went with my grandfather to the place that his grandfather was raised in Holland, and took like a whole little family history tour, which was really fun. But the first place that I went in like a missions context was to Mexico when I was about 15. So I'm not sure like which direction.
All of it, because I feel like nations are nations.
Yeah.
When we go, it just says everywhere our feet go, the Lord will give it to us. And I think that wherever we go, the Spirit of God goes. And so if you went to Holland when you were 10, the Spirit of God went to Holland. And I think that's just as much ministry as, going and doing missions.
Yeah, totally.
So, especially connecting to your ancestry.
Yeah. There's something significant. Yeah. Something significant about that for sure. Just understanding like where you came from and how that influences who you are, even down to like Dutch culture is really interesting. They're very direct people, like they're very black and white people, and they say what they think and they don't sugarcoat it. And that's very much a part of like, you see how that comes through in me. Like,
see, I thought that was the Indian in you.
But it is as well. Like there's no chance for me not to say what I think. So I've got the Indian culture and the Dutch culture. They're both very strong.
A double whammy.
Very blunt. Whereas Australian culture is much more passive, much more chill. And
what's been your favorite thing about Australia?
You're
at the beach a ton.
We live 5 minutes from the beach. Yeah. We lived 5 minutes from the beach there.
You used to live 5 minutes from the beach. Now you're in Northwest Alabama.
At one time lived 5 minutes from the woods. And it's beautiful. The culture is very it's very well set up. And so there's not a lot of stress. They have a lot of jobs. Jobs are good. Jobs pay well. Healthcare is free and it's really quality healthcare. A lot of just the way that their society is set up it's set up to serve the community, but they have a lot less people to deal with. So I think there's something like 20 million people in the whole country.
Okay.
And there's only 2 million people in the city of Perth, which is relatively small in a city sense. And they've got so much space. Like the country is as big as America.
Right.
But everybody lives on the coast. And so it's just a very different dynamic.
Yeah.
But everybody lives next to the beach and, all of the stresses that weigh people down here, they don't necessarily have a lot of those kinds of stresses. I mean, they do have stresses in different ways, but it just means that the culture in general as a whole is a lot more peaceful. It's a lot more laid back. And that's been nice, like just to get used to a different pace of life.
Yeah.
And to understand who God is in the midst of that.
Okay.
It's been really interesting. And I think it's been really good for me. So this is kind of a long roundabout answer to your question.
No, keep going because I think this is going to be I know where this is going to go and it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think so. For me, from the time I was 15 years old, have been in some sort of ministry, some sort of ministry
public,
leadership, platforms type of ministry. And
so can we, you were with Heidi Baker in Iris Ministries?
Yep. So I joined the RAMP team, the chosen team.
The RAMP here with Karen Wheaton. We're in Northwest Alabama. We do RAMP events, conferences. We have a school of ministry. So you were here for a number of years.
Yeah. And before we even had a church here, we just had the traveling ministry. And we were on the road 48 weeks out of the year.
On TBN,
everywhere, doing big church conferences all over the country. And so I did that. I joined the team when I was 19 years old and just traveled all through college. And then when I graduated college, I came here and started working for the office and conferences, back-to-back conferences, every other weekend conferences, so public ministry, extravaganza. I felt called to Africa. To go and spend a couple of months in Heidi Baker's school. So I did that for 3 months. It was the first time in a long time that I had 3 months where I was just a student receiving and not in ministry somehow.
Which I know was so good for you, but oh my gosh, we missed you so much while you were gone.
I missed you guys half the time. I was having a horrendous time because I was just missing home so much.
We were so glad you were there.
But it was life-changing for me. It was my, just time hiding away with the Lord on the mountain in the glory,
So 2012?
2010, that
2010. Okay, the first time. Yeah.
And I came back and spent another little stint here. And then in 2012, went back to staff that school and work with Heidi more full time. And so I did that up until I got married in 2014.
Yep.
And and then from then we were doing missions and until we got pregnant. And when we got pregnant in 2016, we went back to Australia to have the baby. And for the first time in over a decade, I wasn't doing any type of ministry. We weren't in any type of leadership position. We were just church people, normal church people. And
a mom, a wife.
I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband was working a secular job and, working full-time. And I was just at home. And, even we were at a small church and it was a great church, but nobody knew me or cared what I had to say or was wanting to pull me into any sort of how about you come lead this, or how about you come pray over you know what I mean? There's none of that because nobody knew me from anybody. So that was a big, it was a big shift in my life. But I think it was one of the most important seasons that I've had, because it caused me to reevaluate my identity and who I was, what my identity was based on, what my values were based on, what made me feel valuable as a person. Made me reevaluate all of those things. And I really struggled feeling purposeless and feeling like I wasn't doing anything for the kingdom. And
so this
I wasn't important.
Like a rest, hey, we get to just be regular church people. You wrestled in your mind
big
with
wrestle.
this.
Yeah. And it was like you said, it was 4 years at that point until now that I just, was nobody in the world, nobody important or significant in my own mind anyways. Yeah. And that was really hard for me feeling that way. But it was so important because I realized how much of my identity and value was rooted in ministry and that public platform and feeling like I was part of something important and, not just resting in my identity as a daughter of God and someone who God loved. And even when I don't do anything, I think that's the thing that blew my mind the most is God loves me just the same when I'm not doing anything for him. When I spend all day in my sweatpants cleaning up poop and spit up from a baby, he loves me just as much and thinks that's just as important as if I'm, preaching to the world or something.
I remember one time texting you and asked you what you were doing. You're like, I'm eating ice cream with Jesus. And I was like, you're what?
That's how we bond. Me and the Lord.
Yeah, you were just, I was like, oh, I guess Jesus likes ice cream. And you just had this way of inviting God into every area of your life back then. But then whenever you start getting busy, then you start finding identity in what you do.
And that's exactly right. I would have never, if you had asked me back then, is your identity in ministry? I would have said, no way. That's not a thing. I don't struggle with that. It's not an issue. So, but it wasn't until I was really stripped of all of that and really stripped back and even, struggling a bit to understand my identity as a wife or my identity as a mother, what that was supposed to look like, what's the right way to be a wife or a mother, all of those sorts of things. It was just a massive identity overhaul. And marrying somebody from a different country meant that when I got married, I changed last names, I changed countries, I changed friend groups, I changed churches, I changed lives. It was like I went to sleep and woke up in somebody else's life that had no connection to my former life or my life here. Yeah. And that was all very just unsettling. It was just a massive overhaul where suddenly where I had found identity, maybe in my friendships even, or not even ministry, but my friend groups and my family and all those things that tied me or connected me or grounded me were suddenly taken away, and I was just kind of floating in this new world of somebody else's family and somebody else's friends.
Because spoiler alert, we won't say a whole lot, but you met your husband while you were in Mozambique.
Yes.
So it's not a part of our friend group.
Not at all.
These two worlds were completely separate. You know, you had your friends, your family, and all of this here in the States. You meet your husband in Africa, who is from Australia. And then when you guys get married and you start having a family and all of that, you are in Australia, completely separate place from everyone here.
Yes,
that you
not one friend that knew me.
We didn't know Brett.
No crossover whatsoever.
No.
Yeah. And so it was massive, and it was tough.
That is huge, Jules.
But it was so good for me because it was like the one constant that I have is God. My one constant thing is my relationship with Jesus. He's the one person that knows me, that understands me completely, that gets where I'm coming from when I'm struggling to adapt to a new culture. And it really forced me to be grounded in him.
Did you have that awareness of him in the beginning when you are starting to realize things are being taken away? You didn't realize that right away.
Yeah, okay. I would say it was just a bit tough. And it felt a bit alone.
How long did you flounder a bit before you were able to get your feet under you and go, oh, God is here and that's all I need?
Roughly 4.5 years. I don't know, it felt like a really long time. And
it was a journey for you.
It was a journey. And it wasn't until probably, like I had moments here and there where I felt like God really broke through. But it wasn't probably until, the last year that I really began putting the pieces together and understanding the purpose that was behind my time there.
It's so interesting that as you're starting to get that revelation and to start to walk in it, that God brings you back here to the States, to Northwest Alabama, where you've been. But it was almost like he had to go, Julie, I have to take you to Australia for all these years.
I said to Sam Bentley, because he was wondering when we were coming back this way to visit. It was one time when he was asking us about this. And I said, well, I feel like I'm with the Israelites stuck in the wilderness for 40 years until I learn what I'm supposed to learn, and then I'll be able to come back. But it does really feel like that a little bit. But I think, the Lord has purpose in all things. Yes. And I actually came out with some amazing friends. There's a handful of girls that were just such life to me during those times. Yes. And I'm so thankful. I don't know what I would have done without them. And even in this season of life, like I know that they're life friends for me. And I feel like if I was in Australia just to meet those girls, like, it was worth it.
Because I think like in 5 or 10 years, just like we were using the verse, there's a voice behind you. I think that in 5-10 years, you're going to hear that there's a voice behind you, and Australia has to do with where you're going and what you're doing, a part of your purpose. Like, it's not just this random thing out there, and now that it's over, let's kind of clip it out of the story.
Yes.
It's part of the story. Like, God wastes nothing. Even the Israelites, even though they wandered for 40 years, there was purpose. Like, God revealed himself to them as provider, and all the miracles that they saw, and building altars of remembrance.
And the things that needed to die, died in the wilderness.
The things that needed to die, died.
And the things that lived, they took into the promised land,
I mean, it really, in all of that, even though it was not the purpose, the original plan that God had, because they could have made the trip in 7 days, 8 days, God didn't waste it. Like, it wasn't wasted.
Absolutely.
And it's a part of, we are still talking about it, and it's in the Bible all these years later that we get to read about it and learn from it. And even seasons of our life that we feel like we struggled or we didn't have it all together.
Yes.
God's like, no, it's just part of the story.
And I'm even seeing so much of the manifestation of that here and now.
Okay.
In that all of those things that I feel like were really stripped out of me and really died when I was in Australia, it's like I feel like I'm living the fruit of that now, even being back here when we do have a lot of ministry to do. And we're now kind of like thrust back into, because we've just taken over the missions department at RSM. And I've kind of
the Ramp School of Ministry.
Yes.
Here at the Ramp.
And have been thrust into kind of like a ministry season again. But the way that I feel about it is so different. I don't feel this pressure in ministry. I don't feel like this is something that I have to do to get my voice heard, or this adds importance to me. I just feel like, no, this is just me living my life and letting other people see me live my life.
Exactly. Because here you came to head up the missions department at the Ramp School of Ministry. And as soon as you get back to the States, we go on shutdown and all schools go online, and you're sitting here and doing this thing, and God's like, God's like, I got this, Jules. You just go hang out at Rocky Top over there with your husband and baby.
We're just hanging out.
We're just going to do some school online.
We're catching tadpoles.
I brought you all the way to the United States to head up this missions department at this ministry school, but I got this, Jules.
Yeah, honestly, it's so funny because...
And that could be devastating to you if your identity was wrapped up in that.
Exactly. Yeah. And at this point, I'm kind of just, I'm not even that surprised.
Like,
not that I'm, the whole COVID-19 thing, obviously, like that's a crazy element.
Yeah.
But the fact that the school's been rerouted and the missions trips we thought we were going to be taking, we're not taking, I'm not even that surprised by that.
Yeah.
And I'm not particularly fazed by it either, because I just know, like, this is our life. Like, our life is full of curveballs and unexpecteds, and a part of me fought that for a while, but at this point, I'm just like, you know what? The Lord is in control. We're going to be exactly where we need to be, whether it's in this country or another country.
Yes.
He is going to be there with us, and we're going to be together. And with each other and with the Lord. And that's the thing that matters, like that connection to God is, for me, the most important thing. My connection to God is the absolute most important thing that I have. It's the only thing that I'll take with me into eternity.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that can sever that like me not having a house right now, or me not being able to take missions trips, or me not being able to lead mission students. Like, that has no effect on my connection with God. Like, that can't take that away from me. And so if that's where I put my peace, that's where I am settled in my connection with God, then everything around me can just swirl as it's going to swirl.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be here with the Lord. I'm going to be okay. You know?
This might be a bit of an abstract, kind of a vague thought, but can you describe or put into words, when you talk about your connection with God, what do you mean by that? For people that might not understand that kind of language, or understand God the way, because you're actually, your connection with God is different than mine. We all have a unique individual connection with God. What does yours look like? How do you know that you're connected to God?
For me, it's all about my internal landscape, what's going on in my mental space, where I'm at in my mental space. So connection with God, to me, is not something that's really exterior at all. Like, I can't look at you and say, oh, she's got a connection with God.
Right.
If you are holding 10 Bibles and shouting, praises to the Lord, I still can't say, oh, she's connected with God.
Right.
Because it's an internal thing.
Yes.
And only the Lord knows what's happening in your heart.
Exactly.
Only the Lord knows what's happening in your mind.
I agree.
So for me, it's a lot less about the externals in my life and a lot more about in my internals, like in my mind, in my heart, what's going on. Do I have peace? Am I trusting the Lord in this area? Am I not trusting the Lord? Am I putting my heart before Him? Am I clinging to my own plans? And so for me, it's kind of like a daily evaluation of, let me just quiet my thoughts, quiet my heart, recognize that God is present. He's here with me, and connect my heart to His, and put myself in a place of submission to Him, and say, okay, Lord, what do you want with this day? What do you want in my mind? What do you want in my heart? What do you want with my family? It's not about me and my agenda and what I want. It's about me just feeling you, on my insides, feeling like I'm letting Him in. Does that make sense?
Yes, you're acknowledging Him, and inviting Him into your life. What does it look like for you? How has that changed, you think? How does it help you mother children?
I think it's the only thing that helps you mother children.
What's been the hardest thing, Julie? Because listen, like,
how long is your podcast?
This is a whole other episode, isn't it? We might have to start this one. We're going to do. We'll do one on motherhood. We're going to do one on being a wife and travel. The hardest part, because when my single friend Julie left town, left the country, and then she gets married, and then she comes back, and like, you have these kids. I remember the first time you were back here, and you came over for dinner, and you had these kids with you, and I was like, wow, like,
Julie's a mom. And it was really bizarre. Probably about how like you feel about my daughter Molly Cole getting married.
Yes.
In a couple months. Because
so
she was like
weird.
8.
She was 8. She's still 8 in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like that. I'm like, oh, Julie is like a wife and has children. She is a mom. And it's, so I'm learning that part of you, like getting to see this. Hey, Jules, I hate to tell you, but you for the rest of your life will wonder what on earth are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. I feel like motherhood's such an interesting thing because I feel like it seems like, if we're doing the comparison game, right? Like it seems like some people fall into motherhood so naturally. They just wake up, they're made to mother. They wake up every morning, they're making homemade organic eggs for their children and then feeding them, you know, snack packs of homemade granola as they go out to do their multiplication tables. And you know what I mean? I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe you get there eventually. It seems like some people are just born with this like homemade, organic, traditional motherhood gene. I have found that is not a gene that I particularly was blessed with.
You're just good if your kids have clothes on.
I'm good if my kids have clothes on and aren't like eating poisonous, dangerous things.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times. My kids are just wild. Like maybe some kids are calm. And the Lord's just given me like wild monkeys to raise. I don't know. I have no explanations, honestly, but they are so gorgeous and hilarious and wild. They are just wild kids.
Yeah.
And it's a constant daily challenge. It has been the most growing experience I have ever encountered in my entire life.
I remember the Lord giving me the revelation about my children when they were younger. It was training a child up in the way they should go. And I realized it was not one thing, like in the way they should go, but it was the way they should go. How do I train Molly?
Really
what
good.
way is she supposed to go? How do I train Max in the way he's supposed to go? Maya.
That's so
because
good.
as moms, we can see what God is doing in our kids and who he's created them to be. We start to notice, and God starts talking to us, especially when we pray, you know, over our families. God reveals like, this is what your daughter is going to do. This is what your son is going to do. And it's like not trying to make them fit in that. I don't want my kids to be good. I want them to love God.
Yes.
Do you know? And I had to get over that. I don't want them to be good. I want them to love God, because being good makes me look good.
Yes, exactly.
And them loving God, I don't know what that's going to make me look like.
Yes.
Because they could just go out and do some things that people go, oh, I don't know if that was good. I'm like, but it was God.
Yes.
I need to be able to get over like what people think of my kids. And I was like, okay, so raising Molly is going to look like not like anybody else.
Yes.
And so raising Max in the way he's supposed to go, and learning that maybe some of this like wildness is just part of who God's created them to be. And how do we see that as a strength and not as something we have to like put a cap on?
Yes,
Do you know
exactly.
what I mean?
Yes.
And that is so challenging sometimes when we just
can
are
be
tired.
really challenging when you're tired and you're always tired. You're just always tired all
Sorry,
the time.
Julie. My kids are teenagers and I'm still tired.
Never ends.
No,
Oh my
listen.
word. And everything they do will affect you.
Yeah.
Everything. Every decision they make.
Well, just because they are a part of us and we carry them. And one, like, it grieves us when they hurt, and it grieves us
my goodness.
when they don't have a revelation of truth about people or friends. Just wait till yours get a little bit older. You know, it's just this, you know, you just want them to know God and love God. But I remember praying, I don't want them to just to love my God. Like, I want it to be the God of Isaac, you know, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob.
Yes.
I need them to have like God be real to them and who they are, and not them just love my God.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And wanting them to have that experience and have their own unique relationship with the Lord. And that is just hard to navigate, because you want to just control and make everything happen. And it's like God has a purpose and a plan for our kids. And our job is to train them up in the way that God has ordained for them to go.
Good. Yeah.
And it's not going to look like
everybody else's
kids. And so if that can kind of even set some people free, like
yes, it
your
does.
kids do not
so
need to look
does.
like anybody else's kids because God has made them unique and there's nobody else like them.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's so true. And I think I'm realizing that more than ever. Like things that are okay for some kids, I just don't think Ethan's ready for that. And I don't think he responds well to that. And I want to be sensitive to where he's at, or, he's just all the different little things like that. And it's like, well, this person lets their kids watch this. But I feel like Ethan really responds negatively to that. So I'm going to, just trying to figure out what is best for him as an individual rather than basing it on what everybody else is doing.
It's sort of like, remember you were talking about identity and how we don't need to find identity in what we do. I feel like when we can walk in freedom from that, then it takes the pressure off of our kids for them to feel like they have to fit in a box themselves as they grow. Well, I'm supposed to play sports, or I'm supposed to do this or be that when I grow up. When they can see us as parents walking in, knowing who our identity is in the Lord, we're secure in that no matter where we go, what we do, what kind of job we have, what kind of car we drive. None of that matters. And just get down to, what am I supposed to be doing now in this season?
Yeah, so it's so huge. Good. And I don't think anything has motivated me to really walk in freedom and pursue freedom in my own life like having kids.
Yeah.
And knowing that everything that I do affects them, every attitude, every wrong idea I have affects them, has a direct impact on them. It's been a huge motivator. Even, and we'll talk about this maybe when we talk about Aya, but her birth gave me this huge motivator to not walk in fear, because I don't want my daughter to grow up walking in fear.
Right.
And so it's been a really beautiful journey. There's so many beautiful aspects of it.
Yeah.
But there are so many crazy aspects of it as well.
So what are you and your family doing right now while you are being home?
So we have been really just trying to make as much fun of it as we can. Yeah. So we've been doing kind of like special things with the kids. Like we went and caught a bunch of tadpoles. We're watching them turn into frogs.
Oh.
We babysat a puppy for a few days.
I saw the pictures.
It was partly a horrible idea and partly really cute to see them with a puppy. Mostly a horrible idea. We made kites out of sticks and plastic bags, tried to fly kites on a windy day. Just trying to get outside as much as we can and not watch the TV too much, not do too much of the... You
didn't call it the telly. You called it TV.
We don't call it the telly in Australia.
Oh, do you not?
No,
okay.
I haven't heard anybody say that.
Oh, maybe that's just in England.
I think it's an England thing,
okay.
But so we've been trying to just not be inside because it's spring. And so the weather's been really beautiful most days. So we've been trying to get out into the woods and take walks and just try to make it as normal for the kids as possible just by doing fun things. Because they're feeling it, Ethan had just started really loving kids' church. And now we can't go to kids' church. And so we've been trying to just... kind of make every day an exciting adventure in its own way.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to doing whenever this quarantine is over?
Having a lot of people in one place, gathering with more than 2 or 3 people. So
now, introvert, extrovert, where do you fall?
I technically am an introvert.
Yes.
In that I recharge when I'm alone.
Yes.
When I'm by myself.
Yes.
But I'm an extroverted introvert, as in I love people. Days by myself is never my idea of a fun time. I love interaction. I love talking. I love knowing people. Yeah. So people would think maybe that I'm an extroverted person, but I recharge by myself. So it's by definition, that's an introvert thing.
Because I think the extrovert comes out of you because that's the part of you that loves God. And because God loves people, then it's that part of you that activates loving people and letting people into your life and being involved with people.
Yes.
But you are naturally an introvert. Are you on the Enneagram journey at all?
So I took that Enneagram quiz. I'm just getting into the Enneagram
Just dabbling.
stuff.
Okay.
I took the quiz and it didn't know what to do with me.
Then you must be a 5.
It gave me exactly equal parts 1 and 2 that were my highest, and then everything else was exactly equal parts, like just under 1 and 2.
Dave was like even across the board on every number.
Yeah,
He's like, it didn't work. I was like,
mine was just about like that.
You didn't take the test right. I was like, you sabotaged it because he didn't want to take it. He was just humoring me. But I was like, no, you got to do it. And so we had him listen to a couple of podcasts that I know that are really grounded, and he started listening, and I would intentionally play the one that I thought he leaned towards. And it was like, everything was like really resonating in him. And he's like, okay, I guess I'm a 5.
So I might need to listen to some of those podcasts.
I'll have to shoot you a few. There's some really great, even faith-filled people that take a, it's not such a weird, wacky approach to it. But I love it because it helps me in my relationships with people to kind of know
where they're at.
Yeah, how they work, how do they process information, how do I communicate best with them to be able to learn those things about them.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it's just a fun conversation starter.
I just love personalities. Like, I love understanding the way that different people work. So I'm totally there. I just haven't done the Enneagram thing. Okay. And I think I struggle with like the quizzes and stuff, like asking, do you do this or would you do that? Because I find my responses really vary in different situations.
Depends on how I'm feeling that day.
Depends on how I'm feeling that day. Depends on the situation, what else is going on.
Did my kids sleep through the night last night? I don't know.
Sometimes I feel like this. Sometimes I feel like that.
Right now?
But that's with every personality test I've ever taken. Like, I find that struggle.
Yeah. So of all the places you've traveled in the world, you probably have like a favorite food. What do you eat? What is like your favorite thing to eat?
My most favorite food is Middle Eastern.
Is it? Okay.
Middle Eastern food is unbelievable. The flavors, the textures. I had one of my most favorite meals I've ever had was cooked for me by some Iranian refugees that I met in Istanbul in Turkey. And they cooked us a full Persian meal. Oh. And it was unbelievable.
Oh, my
so
goodness.
Me and Brett, whenever we'd have date nights in Perth, we'd go to the city and find every Middle Eastern restaurant we could find and just try different Middle Eastern restaurants.
So you like the little bit of spicy stuff?
It's not even spicy so much. Middle Eastern food doesn't have the heat to it that like Indian food does or some other kinds of food, Thai food. It doesn't have that kind of heat to it. So give me an
example of Middle Eastern. What
Middle
were some things you would eat?
Is hummus, couscous.
Yes.
It's yogurt, like yogurt sauces, marinated meats, pomegranates, different like baklava or those kind of desserts, breads, flatbreads, homemade flatbreads.
Do you do fish?
I do eat fish.
You do eat fish? Do you eat red meat?
I do eat red meat, which is more of a recent development in my life.
I remember
I was a vegetarian for a long time.
I remember.
Yeah, that mostly ended when I married in Australia. They are real meat eaters.
Yeah. Not a lot of gardens happening over there. A lot of cattle.
A lot of cattle. Yeah. It wasn't going to last very long. I tried to hold out for a while when I was married to Brett, and then I was like, you know what? There's no point. And by that time, I'd become kind of like a loose vegetarian. Like, I don't want to make a big deal out of being a vegetarian, so I'll eat meat if people serve it to me. I'm not going to be like, don't cook whatever you were going to cook. Like, I'll just go along and eat whatever they were going to make. But in Australia, that was like 3 times a day of eating meat. And I was like, well, I guess that's that. But it actually, like, it's been fine. Like, it's been
I just don't have a taste for it, really. Like,
I
don't
remember
really
that.
It. Yeah. I mean, I'll eat it.
It's kind of a struggle to eat it.
Yeah,
but
just like, I can go without it.
But. Yeah. And I'm the same. We still eat vegetarian probably 2 or 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And just kind of sprinkle meat in there. And Brett's fine with that.
Just the convenience of raw food, too. Just not having to cook, just throwing stuff together or juice or smoothies. Just, And
I think it just makes you feel healthy. If you eat a vegetarian meal, you're like, oh, I know I got so much nutrient. I was filling up on nutrients and not just filling up on kind of like fillers. So it's great.
If you and Brett were going to take a vacation, like next month, let's just say travel ban lifts and you get to go on a vacation, where would you go?
Paid vacation?
Yes, paid. Anywhere in the world for vacation.
With my kids or without my kids? It makes a difference.
Let's say without kids.
If I was going somewhere without kids, I'd probably go to the Maldives. For like a vacation.
Yes. Have you ever been?
No, I've never been. But one of those huts over like this clear turquoise water just looks really inviting and relaxing. If I was going somewhere for like a fun, exciting vacation, Istanbul is an incredible city. I have been there. And
I have not been.
One of my favorite places that I've been. It's a huge city. It's vibrant. It's on the water. It kind of straddles this strait between Asia and Europe. And so there's so much culture there. And it's beautiful. And everything is just... the food, the people is just so warm and inviting, and it's beautiful. There's like so many things to explore.
What would we do in Istanbul?
We would ride the ferry on the water back and forth to different parts of the city. We'd explore all of the old buildings. There's like loads of just centuries old buildings in Istanbul that are beautiful. We would go and have a Turkish bath.
Persian friends would have to cook.
We'd visit our Persian friends.
A Turkish bath.
We'd go to a Turkish bathhouse because that is an experience that people
explain the Turkish bathhouse.
I don't know if it's appropriate.
We'll save
we might need
that story for another day.
Put a different mature rating.
Yes,
on your podcast. But it's an experience.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful city.
Yeah. So great. And the weather's really good there too.
The weather's really good.
Round,
and the beaches, like it's got the sea right there. You could go down to take a day trip, go down to Ephesus, see the ruins at Ephesus. And I just love I love old buildings. I love historical sites. It just fascinates me that we could walk somewhere on the same stones and see the same walls that somebody hundreds of years ago walked by. Like that, to me, that enduring, I think that's why I love art too, like the enduring quality of art, the enduring quality of books, of writing. Like I just am fascinated by those things that span generations.
Yes, because they continue to speak. Like it is leaving a history.
Yes.
Leaving behind a story that continues to speak.
Yes, like I love that book by Brother Lawrence, the
Practicing the
Presence, that's it. And because he was a simple man. He washed dishes in a monastery. He didn't live any kind of large life during his lifetime. But his books, years and generations later after his death, are still speaking to millions and inspiring millions of people. He's touching so many lives.
Yes.
And he just lived this small, quiet, isolated life in a monastery.
I think that there's something, that's so beautiful. There's really something about that. Like even right now in our culture where we feel like we have to do things and get things done and we have to make an impact and we have to be an influencer and we have to do all of these things. It's really in the simple things. If we do the things that matter and make a difference in eternity, it will speak for itself.
Yes.
And
that's so refreshing to me because I'm not good at any of that kind of stuff. I'm not good at being an influencer. I don't have like an Instagram presence. Like I don't know how to take a proper selfie, Yeah. And I'm just like, I said to someone sometime, I need like a 13-year-old to come and give me selfie lessons because I just I don't know how to do it. But I feel like, no, if I can do things that matter with my life, it doesn't my influence is not going to be measured by my Instagram followers. It's going to be measured by eternity.
Yeah. I think of like my kids and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, you know, the impact that they're going to have in the earth just because I was present.
Yes.
You know, because I created an atmosphere in my home where they felt loved.
Yes.
And safe and nurtured. And I raised them up in the way that they should go. And just those things that we think are not big things.
Yes.
But it's just those practical, those everyday things that seem insignificant that are really the things that change the world.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I posted this quote, like at the beginning of this quarantine, Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the most beautiful and accurate thing that could be said about this time. Just love your family, love people well.
Yes.
And your life will leave a legacy of that, you know?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Julie, we have to do this again soon. Like, we got so much to talk about. Now that you're back here in Alabama, it's like, I mean, you came here, you were here for a couple of months, and then you had to go back to Australia. And I was like, I've been waiting for you. I'm in line because everybody loves Julie. And Brett, your husband, Brett,
is a character.
One of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And I cannot wait for everyone on the podcast to meet him.
Yes.
They're going to love him, aren't they?
Yes.
So they are. All right. Well, we're just going to have to make a date and do this again soon. We got lots to talk about.
Guys, I'm not kidding. Julie and I could talk for hours on so many different topics, and I wasn't joking when I mentioned her coming back and talking about some of these different areas of transition that she's walked through in her life. And I cannot wait for you to meet her husband, Brett. These two together always make me laugh. I cannot wait for you to hear the story of how they met, dated, and married. It will be a he said, she said conversation that will be so much fun. We've got a couple of new exciting things coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned and make sure your notifications are on. We've got a podcast page on Facebook and a YouTube channel if you'd rather watch your podcasts on video. And if we're not yet connected on social media, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook under the name Melissa Matheson. That's math like 4 + 1 = 5, I before E, son, S-O-N. Our mini-series, A Breath of Fresh Holly, continues this Friday with episode 2 and just a little hint. All you single people interested in some dating do's and don'ts might want to tune in. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time when we sit around the table, have a cup of coffee, and talk about what's next, God.